Welcome to the Sarah Stratt Show. I'm your host, Sarah Stratt. This is a podcast about rebuilding, ambition, mindset, creativity, relationships, success, and figuring life out in real time. I used to podcast years ago, and honestly, I kept putting off starting again because I felt like everything needed to be perfectly figured out first. But lately, I've realized that waiting is its own trap. So this is me starting before I feel fully ready. And I have a feeling that a lot of you might relate to that too. So let's dive into today's episode. Ready or not? Hi, friends. Welcome in for another episode of the Sarah Stratt Show. I am your host and friend, Sarah Stratt. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about how feeling things deeply is not a weakness. It's awareness, it's intuition, it's empathy, it's creativity, and it shows that you have a high emotional intelligence. So if you've ever been told the phrase, you're too sensitive, then this podcast is for you. If you're new here, we have a podcast every 2 weeks. I am so excited to have you here. You can follow me on my socials. That's Sarah Stratt on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. And we are just so happy to have you here. If you want to share this with a friend, if you want to hit the like button, the follow button, make sure your notifications are turned on. All of those things help get our reach out there as we continue to grow the podcast and create and build a community and a safe place for everybody. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me today and for taking the time to post a comment or share or like the podcast or subscribe on any of our platforms. We're happy to have you here and let's dive in. So, I don't know about you, but I grew up with a lot of phrases in some variation of you're too sensitive, calm down, take things so personally, stop hamming it up. That was a classic one. I don't know if you've ever heard that one before, but stop hamming it up was like the key one for me. And I've since learned that I actually have ADHD, which would cause me to have some really big feelings and become overstimulated or overly sensitized to certain stimuli or situations, and can affect the way that you respond and your tone of voice, and potentially not knowing how you sound with high anxiety as well. There's often times that we think that we sound not upset, but we actually sound like we are upset. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but if you can, please comment below because I feel like there will be a slew of people that can relate to that. It's like the tone police for yourself. You could be, getting excited or worked up about something or stressed out or mad, and your tone just does not suit the situation at all. Or you're in a calm situation and your tone of voice sounds like you're angry just because you are overstimulated by the amount of sound going on in the room, or your clothes are touching your body in a specific way that is irritating you, or your hair is too hot on your skin, or your feet are hot, or a million things that are causing it to happen. I've learned a lot about how those things affect me through therapy or through reading and learning about different issues or mental health struggles like ADHD or anxiety disorder or PTSD, and how those things affect me and what they look like. And they can look different for everybody. But when you're growing up and you are constantly being told that you're too much, we can find ourselves shrinking ourselves to fit in so that we are not so much. As we go into adulthood, that can continue onwards and can actually really affect us in the long term because we will miss out on certain opportunities that we really deserve to have or experiences because we are scared of being too much and putting ourselves out there in a way that we might be looked at and judged. And so we can end up policing ourselves a lot more heavily than we should be. I've talked about this before in, TikTok videos and things like that, which is the difference between being sensitive versus being emotionally reactive. And there's a huge difference in those two things. And when I was younger, I was heavily emotionally reactive. Like I was almost unable to control my emotional reaction to things. But when I got older, I started to learn that there is power in being able to control your emotional reaction to things. And that's in any environment, but specifically, I'm talking about relationships, but it can be in any environment. What do I mean by being able to control your emotional reaction? Well, if you are in a situation, say, where you are having a disagreement with somebody and your go to threshold is to go high and react and get defensive and maybe get snappy, or you start to say things that you regret, that is something that you actually do have control over. Being emotionally reactive is something that we can regulate, and we can catch ourselves and stop ourselves and be like, do I want to react this way? Or do I want to reserve that big reaction and have a calm, communicative discussion about what's going on? Because you are going to get a better result by being calm and approaching something with a sound mind versus just being heavily emotional reactive. And those things are different than being too sensitive, okay? Because when you're in a situation where maybe your buttons are being pushed or you're feeling triggered, you are able to reflect and control your response so that you can have a balanced discussion about it instead of just getting loud and aggressive or saying things that you're going to regret, things that you can't take back. And in the heat of the moment, it can feel next to impossible to take a step back internally and say, okay, am I seeing things clearly right now? Or is there a chance that my judgment and my perception of this conversation is tainted by something that has upset me in the past, by a previous relationship or situation where something happened that maybe broke my trust or made me feel a certain way? Is my perception being jaded by that? Can I take a step back and see if maybe I can put myself in the other person's shoes, see if we can calmly discuss this? Or better yet, at some points, put a pin in it and come back to it later when tensions have de escalated a little bit on both sides. So there's a big difference between being sensitive and being highly emotionally reactive, right? Being emotional is and sensitive is a blessing. It's an incredible thing. There are so many people who are artists and visual creators, actors, writers, musicians, caregivers, like incredibly talented people who are highly empathetic, able to see the world through other people's point of view. They live in their feelings, they're sensitive, they're connected, they're able to emote and feel things that, some people maybe aren't able to feel. And that is a blessing. It is such a blessing. They can notice energy shifts in the room and tone changes, your body language, some emotional undercurrents that other people might miss. And there's a certain balance between being able to use that sensitivity for good versus not being able to control your sensitivity and reacting poorly. So, we're talking about sensitivity and how we can create a safe place for ourselves to feel those big feelings, but also to understand that there is a reasonable way to express those big feelings without putting too much of an emotional tax on ourselves. And that, I think, is an important balance to have, because the world rewards loudness and confidence, but that depth and that sense of security within yourself has incredible value too. If you are an incredibly sensitive person, then I think something that you need to focus on building and creating is strong boundaries. And so many sensitive people don't have a grasp on strong boundaries. And that is what causes us to go kind of off the emotional deep end, because those boundaries, we either haven't expressed them to the person that we're trying to communicate with or build a relationship with or work with, or we haven't even established what boundaries are for ourselves. So we don't know our own limits or what we expect from other people or what we want to achieve and accomplish out of the relationship or the work environment. And without strong boundaries, what do you have? You have no expectations. You have two people trying to build something together where you are constantly misunderstanding each other. You don't know what the other person wants or expects of you, and they don't know what you expect of them. And without those strong boundaries, you're leaving the world open for miscommunications, misunderstandings, and arguments that don't need to happen. And I get it. I get it. Coming up with boundaries for yourself, first of all, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of self reflection, because you need to look at yourself and you need to say, okay, these are things that have hurt me in the past. These are things that have made me feel a certain way. This is something I will absolutely not tolerate. And I need to figure out how I can communicate that boundary. And this is hard work. This is hard inner self work. It is difficult. It is challenging. It is scary, because when you create a boundary and you tell somebody that you love and care about that boundary, there is a underlying fear that they are going to say, that doesn't work for me, and maybe end the relationship. And you have to become okay with putting yourself and your self respect and your values and your boundaries and your morals in a place that are more important than losing somebody or losing a job or losing your partner or losing a relationship with a family member who has created some kind of negativity or toxicity in your life. If you create a strong boundary, you need to also, hand in hand, be comfortable with that boundary ending things. And you need to be okay with that, because you're putting yourself first, you're putting your mental health first, and you're prioritizing your self-worth. And that is self-love. And if somebody comes back at you after you created a boundary and says, you're too sensitive or you're expecting too much from me, I can't do that, I'm not meeting you there, that is enough. They are telling you what they're capable of. They're telling you what their max is. They are telling you how your relationship with them will be in the future. And you need to be comfortable with walking away from that, because it's never going to sit well with you, because you will constantly feel uncertain, triggered, unsure. You'll doubt them. You'll have trust issues. You won't be able to work in that environment, or you will have negativity pop up where issues will arise, and you will have to find yourself repeating over and over again these boundaries, but you already know, because that person already said to you that they cannot accept your boundary and they are not going to work with you on that. And that is enough, because it is not dramatic of you to talk about your feelings and express what makes you feel upset. That is an empowering thing. It is not being too sensitive. It is taking care of yourself. And it actually goes hand in hand with taking care of the other person too. Because if you sacrifice your boundaries to try to make somebody else happy, which is people pleasing, both of you are going to be unhappy in the end, because your needs aren't going to be met and they are not going to feel fulfilled in the relationship either. And personally, I have had my voice be disconnected from who I am because I tried to sacrifice my own voice to make somebody else happy, to fit into somebody else's expectations or what they wanted. And instead, I didn't prioritize myself, and never again. Never again. There's a difference between compromising and sacrificing. Compromising is an open communication between two parties who are working together for the same shared goal. Sacrificing your voice to make somebody else happy or to meet their expectations when it is bringing you down and making you feel triggered or upset or unworthy or undervalued is not the same thing. And nobody wins in that situation because the relationship, whether it's with a family member, a partner, a work environment, is a dead end in that situation. Nobody will win. And so learning how to harness your emotional superpowers can help create so much freedom in your relationship. It can open up creativity, it can enhance you as a leader in your environment, and it can open up a avenue for storytelling where you are able to write the narrative of your own life and lock into what works for you, and you will start to flourish and feel so much better. You will attract the right people. You will attract positive relationships because you are quicker to say, no, I don't want that in my life anymore. And you can make choices about people, places, things that you don't want in your life anymore. And those boundaries are so important because those are what are going to help define your choices. Because people who respect your boundaries and work with you to communicate through them, to collaborate on them, those are people that are good for you. People that don't respect your boundaries, people that look at what you're saying and go, I think I'm going to keep pushing it. And their actions, maybe they say, yeah, okay, I'll do that. But their actions show something different. Those people, or they just blatantly say no, or they say yes. And then the next day they show up and their continued negativity and trauma dumping all over you at your office. Those people are the people that you need to have the firmest boundaries with, because you cannot surrender yourself in a situation that is unhealthy for you. So those boundaries are so important, especially if you're a highly sensitive, highly intuitive person. But boundaries are important for everybody. You can be soft-hearted and loving and kind and perceptive and still be strong and still be powerful, still be able to look at somebody and say, no, I don't want that in my life anymore. And I've been in situations since my teenage years where I made friends with people that weren't very good people, and I've had to cut people out. And I got really good over the years at just being like, I don't want to be your friend. I can't be your friend. You're not bringing any value into my life. You are actually bringing me down. And no. And I got really good at just being able to, you could call it cutting people out. And sometimes it's going to make you look like you're a jerk, that you are heartless, but it's actually the opposite that's true, is that my heart is so big and so caring, and I have so much love for the people that I love. I'm, loyal, and maybe you can relate to that. But when you sacrifice who you are hurting yourself inherently. So it's the opposite. You're not being a jerk. You're actually preserving yourself and giving yourself the opportunity and the space to have a bigger heart, to do bigger things, to give more love to the people that deserve your love and deserve your heart. Because there are people out there that do deserve your love and deserve your heart. There are people out there who are going to bring value into your life every day, who are going to take care of you, who are going to make a safe place for you, who are going to treasure you, who are going to protect you. And those are the people that you want to have in your corner. And so I guess you could say that that is the difference between empathy and self-abandonment. The difference is being able to stand up for yourself and find your voice after maybe years of quieting yourself to make other people around you feel comfortable when people have looked at you and said, you are too sensitive, you are too much. You're not too much. You are not too much. You are everything and more. You should be more. Be more of who you are. Be more, because the more that I find myself and the more things I get excited about and the more creative ideas that I allow myself to dive into, like this year and last year, I wrote and directed 2 short films. I have always wanted to do stuff like that, but I've held myself back because maybe social media or people or the world or the environment, they're like, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Why try? And instead of being like, oh, I can't do that, or I'm too scared, or I'm not good enough, or I didn't go to film school, or, I don't have a professional writing degree, or, I never went to directing school. No, I said, I can do that. I am capable of doing that. And one of my short films won a freaking award, We won an award in Bangkok at the Short Film Festival for horror sci-fi, best in the category. So there, it just goes to show that you are not too much, be more. Be more, because I have found it so freeing. I spent my 20s making myself smaller. And not all the time. There were times that I made myself bigger, but I could have been so much more. And it wasn't until my late 20s that I realized that I was holding myself back in huge ways. And I started to look at places that I was in, relationships I was in, work environments that I was in. And I was like, do I want this for myself? Is this the life? Is this it? And I think that you have to constantly be questioning that. You have to constantly be asking, is this it? Is this what I want? Because if you are looking at something and it's not bringing that value and that sense of security into your life, then it's not it. It's not it. There is more out there. And I'm not saying that you should look at every relationship you're in, and if you're married, you're together for 10 years and be like, should I leave my husband? Like, and constantly ask that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, if your relationship is fulfilling and they are challenging you and meeting you where you're at and helping you grow, and you feel like you can be yourself and be more of yourself, they help you become more of yourself, then that is it. That's the one. And I spent a long time in relationships not knowing that that was even possible. And now I'm in a relationship where I feel like they want me to be more of myself. They want the best for me. And it's not just that I feel like they do, they do. They want the best for me. They look out for me in ways that I didn't know people were capable of doing for me, but in ways that I have looked out for people my whole life. And I will get emotional thinking about it, because there is this fear of being misunderstood versus the freedom of finally being able to express yourself honestly. And it's almost like coming into yourself and being able to be who you truly are, but also discover new things about yourself that you're excited to discover and adventure in. And it's not too sensitive. You are more than enough, and you can be more. And that is something that is important when it comes to healing as well, because healing involves becoming more of yourself, not less of yourself. And I went through something that was pretty stressful a few years ago, and by pretty stressful, I mean it's extremely traumatic. And we've all been through stuff, right? We've all been there. We've been through stuff that hurt us, that changed us, that caused grief, that made us self-reflect, that made us look at a situation. And that healing moment happens when we allow ourselves to step into the next chapter, and the shape shifting for approval stops, and we go, no, this is who I am, and I'm going to be loudly and unapologetically that person. And if you're not there yet and you're still figuring out who you are, that's fine too. Figure it out loudly, fail loudly, experiment with something new loudly. You want to maybe switch careers, you want to try something you never tried before. I mentioned in the last podcast, I tried musical theater in London. My agent called me up one day and she goes, hey, Sarah, would you want to do a play? Do you have any experience with plays or theater? And I said, no, I don't have any experience. Like, I was orphan number 14 in Annie in middle school. I think I was 12. She was like a background performer, little orphan number whatever. And I have no experience. And she goes, well, if you're interested, I can send you to this audition for Cinderella. And I said, yes. And I went to the audition, and they hired me on the spot, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. It was so much fun. It was a Cinderella pantomime comedy. It was amazing. I had a blast. It was a musical. I got to learn choreography. I got to sing. I got to laugh and dance and have fun. I played one of the evil stepsisters. It was incredible. I had to learn 140 lines, and I had never been in a situation like that before. And instead of saying, no, I don't have experience, I don't think I can do that, I said yes, and I went. And they saw in my audition, in my in-person audition, which was actually in the West End, it was a pretty cool story. They saw in the audition how much creativity and freedom I had, and that I was just able to become this person, and it was so much fun. And if I had held myself back and been like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to be too much, and not gone, I would never have had that opportunity. And then I did another play the following year. And now I'm able to say that I've written and directed short films. Like, you have to just step into trying things and failing. And it would have been okay if I went to the audition and they were like, "You're terrible. Sorry, you're not for us." That would have been fine too. And to be honest with you, I have auditions constantly. And a lot of them are actually, you're not for us. Auditioning's hard. It's a tough industry. If you are an actor, it's a tough world out there, because rejection is, I'll talk about that in another episode. Rejection is a whole other can of worms. You got to be comfortable with people being like, no, because you're not going to get every audition or every job or everything that you go for. It's just not going to happen. Same with every date. If you're dating, you're going to go on a bunch of dates. You're not going to like everybody that you meet, and that's okay, right? They're not going to like you maybe, and that's okay. Right? I say that when I'm meeting new friends. That's one of my things I say is, they might not like me, but that's okay, because I don't have to like everybody either. You're not going to get along with everybody. When I was making friends in London, so I moved to London by myself. I was there for 6.5 years. And when I was meeting people, I didn't know anybody when I moved there. I went on Facebook groups for females, and I was making friends and going to meetups, and there were lots of people I didn't like. No offense, but there were lots of people that I was like, that's not my vibe. Vibe check, meet them for a coffee, go out in a group setting or something. And I was like, I can't see myself being friends with you. And I'm sure that people thought that about me, that they were like, I don't like her. That's fine, because I met a bunch of people that I loved and became great friends with, who were awesome people, had great hearts, who I connected with and we bonded with. And I'm still friends with them to this day, even though I've moved back, and I will be friends with them for life, because you're not for everybody and everybody's not for you. And that's okay. That's okay. It's actually great, because the more people that you eliminate who aren't for you, the more people you're going to find that are for you. The more you're going to find your tribe and the people that bring out that creative, amazing version of yourself, who gets to be free and laugh and sing show tunes while you're getting your makeup done. I had this great experience last weekend where we're filming a Star Wars web series, and I got to get involved. It's a whole volunteer project, but on day 2, one of the makeup artists was like, I would love to turn you into one of our aliens. I'm going to ask the director if it's okay. And she did, and she asked him, and Alex said, yes, it's fine. It's great, actually. And so we did that. And while I'm getting my makeup done for 2 hours, we're blasting show tunes, we're singing. It's amazing. And I'm like, these are my people. These are my people who just get to, like, they're being themselves. They're free to express themselves. And then there's that Sarah who used to be scared to be that person. I used to hold myself back. I used to, all throughout my teenage years and my 20s, I used to sit there and be like, I can't do that. I shouldn't do that. That's embarrassing. Don't do that. And now, and I hope that this message reaches you when you are not in your 30s and you're younger, and you can find out sooner who you are, because I wasted a lot of time holding myself back, I feel like. And I know that, no time is wasted, blah, 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 blah. But I do feel like I wish I had discovered this sooner. And if you're finding this message and you're older and you're in your 50s and it's reaching you in your 50s and you're like, I hold myself back a lot. I don't sing in public because I think that that's embarrassing and people shouldn't behave like that. And you're like, but I secretly always wanted to, then this is for you, and you should. You should bust out a show tune and go sing and walk down the street, because if that's who you are, do it. What are you scared of, right? What are you scared of? And also, nobody's looking at you. They're too busy looking at themselves. People are so up in their own head about everything that's going on with them that when you're walking down the street in whatever it is you chose to wear that you think is maybe too much, they are looking at you for maybe one split second and thinking, wow, those are some crazy socks with sandals. And then they're moving on with their lives and they're thinking about what they look like and their perception of what people are perceiving them as. It's all inwards. We're not really like looking at other people and judging them to the extent that we think we are being judged on a daily basis. And if you're around people that do make you feel like you're being judged on a daily basis, those are not your people. Those are the wrong people. Those are the people that are calling you too sensitive and too much. And those are the people that you need to set some boundaries with and move on from. Amen. And if you've been through some stuff, you've been through some ish, like your girl here has, me. I've been through some ish. You can take an opportunity to turn that pain into art, into storytelling, into making something, doing something, writing, journaling, creating. There is beauty in awe and love and nostalgia, music, memories, human connection. Your sensitivity can attract deeper friendships. It can create more meaningful relationships, and you can have a more fulfilled, beautiful life if you embrace that sensitive side of yourself. If you allow your too much side of yourself to really just do the thing and not be scared of what other people are thinking. When you learn to say, this is who I am not ashamed of myself, then that is a beautiful thing. It's about finding a balance between what heavy emotional reactions look like, being able to communicate your needs and your boundaries better so that you are not. Nobody ever needs to be yelling at each other. I will say that right now too. I've had some relationships where people are screaming at each other for what? Nothing is resolved. Nothing is resolved. When I have kids, I'm not going to yell at them. What does that do? Nothing, right? But being able to communicate big feelings and step back and sit with those feelings is an empowering way to be sensitive, to be empathetic. And it's a beautiful thing because you create a safe place and an environment that's safe for your kids to grow, for your partner to grow, for your employees to grow, for them to be like, oh, I can come to her. I can come to her because I am not going to be made to feel embarrassed or judged. I know that if I bring up something that is an issue for me, they are going to deal with it respectfully. They're going to listen. They're going to hear me. And then they're going to communicate with me what their needs are or how they feel about the situation. And I'm going to have to sit with that, right? Because no two people feel the same thing, right? We come from different backgrounds, we come from different experiences in life. No two people feel the exact same thing. And we're going to have to learn how to meet each other in those places so that we can create softness and love and respect in relationships and in work environments with each other. I encourage you all to reconnect with the parts of yourself that you maybe have been taught to suppress, that parts of yourself that you were programmed through social media or your parents or your ex partner when they told you that's too much, don't do that, that's embarrassing, you're embarrassing me. When they told you that, I want you to look within yourself and reconnect with those parts of yourself that you dimmed down, that you turned down the lights on. You know, that one person who told you, oh, you are singing out of tune. Well, you know what? Sometimes in a comedy play, they want you to sing out of tune. So you can make it work, you know, or you could take a singing class and learn how to sing in tune a little bit more. But don't dim your light because one person said something to you a decade ago and you've let that eat at you and eat at your your self-confidence and your self-worth for years and years and years, and you've internalized that comment that that person made. Because we do that. I've done that. I've lived with things that people have said that really hurt me, and for years I criticized myself on it. And that person's not even a part of my life anymore. You know what I mean? I don't even know their last name. Like, and so we have to stop doing that. So I encourage everybody listening today to reflect and reconnect with parts of yourselves that you may have suppressed through negative encounters with people. It doesn't matter who they are. and allow yourself to feel your depth and know that your depth was never the problem, that the wrong environments for your depth and your emotions were the problem, not you. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it. Please turn on your notifications. I am so happy and thankful that you took this time to spend this with me. And thank you for listening to this episode. I hope that I will see you on the next episode. And until then, love yourself a little bit more. I love you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to The Sarah Strat Show. If today's episode resonated with you in any way, I'd really appreciate if you took a moment to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it too. It genuinely helps support the show and allows our community to grow. You can also find more information, updates, and resources at sarahstrat.com, and join me across all social platforms at Sarah Strat to continue the conversation and follow the journey. And if you're also rebuilding, reinventing yourself, healing, chasing a big dream, or just trying to figure life out one step at a time, I hope this podcast reminds you that you're not alone in that. Thank you for being here, and thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next episode of The Sarah Strat Show. Until then, keep going, keep growing, and remember, you do not need to have everything figured out to begin. You can start whether you're ready or not.